Well, thank you for joining us on this video. This is a presentation of Welcome NL. It's called How Welcoming is My Community? And we're going to be sharing tools that can help you assess the readiness of your community to welcome and integrate newcomers into your community. My name is Willow Anderson, and I'm the owner of Mind the Gap Consulting. I've been helping municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador on this project since it began. And this is done in partnership with the Department of Advanced Education, Skills, and Labor. So we're going to be telling you, first of all, just a little bit about who Welcome NL is and what we've been up to. So we'll share a video and then share a little bit of details after.
Every year, Newfoundland and Labrador welcomes people from all around the world. In fact, the province wants to attract even more. Welcome NL is an important part of that effort. We know newcomers make our communities vibrant, stronger, and more interesting places to live. So, if we want to help more people call Newfoundland and Labrador home, we have to make sure every community is a welcoming community. WelcomeNL.ca is a great place to start. Here, you'll find why do new people come to Newfoundland and Labrador? How can they help make communities stronger? How can you make your community more welcoming? What services are available for newcomers? And more. Learn more at WelcomeNL.ca.
So why is immigration important for Newfoundland and Labrador? As you probably know, Newfoundland and Labrador is facing significant demographic challenges. We have Canada's most rapidly aging population, as well as the country's lowest birth rate. So as a result, it's projected that by 2025, there will be a 10% decline in our working age population. This represents 35,000 fewer people in the labor market, and there are many implications of this. One is the fact that there will be a drastic decrease in the tax revenues that governments can collect, and it may lead to reduced services and resources for our communities. So there are many ways that the province of Newfoundland and Labrador hopes to address this challenge, and immigration is one important way that the province might address this challenge. So this is a quick outline of what we're going to be talking about in this presentation. We are going to tell you a little bit more about our project. We're going to talk about the characteristics of what makes a welcoming community from a couple of different perspectives. We're going to talk about what the benefits are of having a welcoming community and assessing your readiness, and then talk about what assessment tools are out there for you. So we've already talked about the demographic challenges that the province is going to be facing and what some of the implications are of that. This is partially outlined in the Way Forward, which is an immigration action plan of the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And this document outlines several things, including the government's goal to have 1,700 new immigrants annually by 2022. And we have asterisks here beside the word immigrants, because in this presentation, we will be talking about immigrants, newcomers, refugees. And so these terms aren't exactly interchangeable, as there are many different ways that people come to Canada to make it home. There are several streams, and so there are many kinds of immigrants and different categories, if you like. So we will use those terms at different times, but use the word newcomer to sort of describe everyone that comes to make Canada home from another country. So the Way Forward, or the Immigration Action Plan of the province, does talk about how we might recruit newcomers to our province, but also how they might be retained, which is an important component. So not only bringing people here, but how might we encourage them to make this place home, to build businesses and families here. So it talks about what the province itself as a government might do. It also suggests how different partner organizations, such as settlement organizations and other nonprofit groups, such as municipalities in Newfoundland and Labrador, what these groups might do to make this plan more successful. And happening concurrently with Welcome NL's work is the fact that the Association for New Canadians is opening satellite offices in Corner Brook, Grand Falls, Windsor, Labrador City, and Happy Valley Goose Bay. The Association for New Canadians is a settlement organization, so it assists newcomers in their settlement and integration in our province. And so it's really lucky, really, that Welcome Newfoundland and Labrador is doing its work at the same time that the Association for New Canadians is opening these additional offices. It means that their services will be available in more areas of the province, and there really can be some synergy between the work that both these organizations are doing. So we've told you a little bit about who we are. As referenced in the video, we have a toolkit which is on our website. And if you're watching this presentation, you've probably already found that website, which is great. So the toolkit is a multimedia resource that's really a living, breathing document. It's meant to reflect the needs of community members, because the clients, if you like, or the people that we're targeting with our information are community members and municipal leaders themselves. So Welcome NL doesn't offer services for newcomers as such, but we'd really like to build capacity within our communities in Newfoundland and Labrador to welcome and retain newcomers. So the resources are really targeted to those who are more established in their communities, and in order to help them be more welcoming. Part of the work that we've been doing in the last couple of years is we've been doing outreach. So presentations have been delivered at various MNL regional meetings throughout the province. We've been telling them about what Welcome NL is. We've also been asking what this toolkit might look like, what might be most important or most useful to community members in order for them to build capacity in their communities. So it's from these regional meetings that we've been gathering this feedback. Primarily, and then we've been taking that feedback and creating the resources and material necessary to build our toolkit into an important and useful resource. Welcome NL is led by a working group. We have municipal representatives, settlement and nonprofit organizations, community members, newcomers as well that work within our communities. And they're all providing feedback and guidance in terms of what the toolkit might include, how might it be developed and distributed, and how we might get the word out to various regions on the work that we do. In terms of key personnel, Kathleen Parwick is the main person here at Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador on this project. And as I referenced earlier, I've been working with my company, Mind the Gap Consulting, to create the resources and tools and content, sort of working as content expert as we move forward in this project. So this is a screenshot of our website. Again, hopefully you've found this presentation through this website. So we really encourage you to peruse the website, see the different resources and information that are available here. And please feel free to contact us if you feel there's any large piece missing or something that you really feel we ought to address in this website. So this is the material that you can find thus far in the toolkit on the website. More details on the context for and the importance of immigration. There's also more details there on the immigration avenues or the various streams that people can use to come to Canada and to make our province and country home. There is a presentation not unlike this one that we call Establishing a Foundation. And what that includes is information on what champions might look like as it relates to starting a welcoming initiative in your community, and what might a team or a community partnership or community organization or support group look like as it relates to welcoming initiatives. And finally, there's a list of the services that are available for newcomers. So as we mentioned earlier, the work of Welcome NL is really targeted at people that are more established in their communities, and it is about building community capacity. However, we recognize that those people working in communities, although they may not be newcomers themselves, or at least not newcomers to the province, they may be working with newcomers most definitely, and as a result, we'd like to share the names and contact information of the organizations that are out there offering services specifically for newcomers. So you also find that information on our website. So we'd like to share with you what the characteristics are of a welcoming community. This is a quote from the Toolbox for Smaller Centers. It was published by the National Working Group on Small Center Strategies. It was published some time ago, but it's very useful and can still be found online. We share the full resource list at the end of this presentation. And in that toolbox, they state that a welcoming community has a strong desire to receive newcomers and to create an environment in which they will feel at home. It ensures newcomers are able to fully participate in all aspects of community life, and that newcomers have access to a full range of services and programs and can find meaningful employment opportunities. So really there's a lot in that, and in this next slide we really like to sort of unpack some of those ideas about what a full range of services and programs might look like. There has been a significant amount of research done on what makes a welcoming community in Canada recently, but this really is the largest of the studies to date. It's one done by Dr. Victoria Esses and several of her colleagues listed down here. You can still find this report online. It's lengthy, and so we just wanted to share with you sort of a very, very quick summary of their findings. So when looking through various different literature on what makes a welcoming community, they really sort of synthesized out of that 17 key characteristics. Maybe not surprisingly, first and foremost, employment opportunities comes up. Very important for people to be able to support themselves and their family. Fostering social capital. So it's important as well that welcoming communities have places and opportunities for people to really build their connections with others around them. Affordable and suitable housing. Positive attitudes towards immigrants, which really sort of makes sense. One wants to be, and one feels a place is welcoming if they feel that those around them have positive attitudes towards immigrants in general. The presence of newcomer support services. So this would reflect the services of organizations such as the Association for New Canadians. Connections between the main players. And whenever I present these characteristics, I often say that I really think Newfoundland and Labrador has a lot to offer on this feature here, number 6. A lot of our communities are smaller communities, and even if they're not, we're fairly well networked. People like to keep in touch with other people. And so the fact that welcoming communities should have connections between the main players is really a point in our favor, if you like. Because as a newcomer enters the system, they have opportunity to meet Joe, for example, who might work at a pharmacy, and then as they talk to Joe and they mention they need a social insurance number, then Joe might put them on to Miriam, who puts them on to so-and-so, who puts them on to so-and-so. So that's sort of one sort of simplistic way I think about these connections. If one is able to make connection with others who are connected, then you easily move through these various systems and processes that otherwise might be sort of independent of each other. But in a community where there are many connections, you don't have to feel as lost, I guess, in where to go next for the various things that you need to get done. Number 7 talks about the features and services that are sensitive to newcomers. So this may not be necessarily services specifically for newcomers, but services that are sensitive to newcomers. So there may be, it may be that some newcomers have needs that are a little bit different than those who've been more established in the community. And so I think it's interesting that this shows up in this list of characteristics as well. The importance of educational opportunities comes up, the access to suitable health care, the availability and accessibility of public transit. That's not always something available in all of our communities, but sometimes exists anyway in informal ways. The presence of diverse religious organizations. So in our province, there may only be 1 or 2 centers that have faith buildings, if you like. So in St. John's, we have a Sikh temple, a Sikh Gurdwara and a Hindu temple and a mosque as well for Muslims, in addition to a variety of different Christian organizations and Greek Orthodox services and such. So we do have a lot of various faith communities and locations where people can practice their faith. It may be in most of the province that buildings do not exist for these faith communities. However, you might find out that as you look into various faith groups in your community, you may learn that people are getting together and or they're traveling to more central areas to celebrate together around specific holidays. It is amazing how far people will travel to really get together and to celebrate with others who are celebrating a similar faith calendar. Social engagement opportunities, obviously, very important as humans. We all want to engage socially with others. Political engagement opportunities, which I think is interesting. Positive relationships with the police and justice system. An opportunity for safety. I think it's very interesting and important that this comes up, particularly if someone has left a place because of strife or turmoil or persecution, such as refugees. You can imagine how important it is to feel that you and your family are safe. Opportunity for public space and recreation, and finally, favorable media coverage. So this covers a huge area here, but this is the results of some very extensive research done by Victoria Esses and her colleagues. And so it is useful to think about these characteristics and where our communities fit, where are the areas where we are very strong, and where are the areas of weakness, where are the areas we really need to work on. So it's worth sort of giving that some thought. This is a different way to think about the characteristics of a welcoming community. These are, I should say, the 10 different characteristics as described on a tool called the MyCom tool. And we'll have a link to that shortly. They list civic inclusion, the welcome ability, health inclusion, spatial inclusion. So when they talk about spatial inclusion, for example, they are referencing the ability of people to access spaces such as parks and public spaces. Political inclusion, the role of the media, educational inclusion, social inclusion, cultural inclusion, and economic inclusion. So these are very broad terms, but I think they do reflect a lot of the 17 characteristics that we just heard about from Dr. Esses and her colleagues. When you do go to this tool, they give a more in-depth description of each of these various dimensions when what they reflect. So one of the benefits of having a welcoming initiative is the fact that it can contribute to municipal sustainability. And what that might look like is reflected here in this slide. The Alberta Urban Municipalities Association really argues that welcoming initiatives can build social cohesion and belonging. So not only with newcomers and their new community, but also with those within and between those who are more established in the community. It can really bring attention to the cultural richness of your community, what diversity is there and is growing as newcomers come and enrich your community. It can help you focus on economic competitiveness. So as you look at who's in your community, the various different businesses that are growing, the economic drive and success that happens as people come and work in local positions, it really helps you, it helps communities become more competitive in an economic environment. It can lead to environmental improvements, and they argue that it can also lead to greater governance and trust within municipal frameworks. So these are some thoughts from the Alberta context. So what are the tools that are out there that help you really learn how welcoming is my community? Unless we know newcomers ourselves, we really may not have a feel for what it is like to arrive in our community as someone who is new, perhaps someone who is English as a second language, perhaps someone who knows no one in the beginning. So these tools are really useful to help us reflect on what that experience might be like. So when thinking about the strengths and weaknesses of your community as it relates to welcoming, you have a couple of choices. You could conduct research yourself to find out where you stand. That could be something you take on yourself, or you might hire someone to do that work. You can also use an online tool such as the MyCon tool, which we referenced earlier. So we'll talk a little bit about these opportunities. You could do original research or hire someone to do original research for you. That might include focus groups, interviews, or surveys that look into things like this. So why did newcomers move to your community? What do they feel are the best things that your community has to offer? And we might be surprised by people's answers because our perspectives are different depending on where we came from, what environments we were in, what we expect of everyday life. So it's really useful to ask people with that firsthand perspective. What services or supports have helped them as newcomers as they entered your community? What challenges have they faced? What would they recommend to other people coming to the town for the first time? And what things would keep them in the community? So really, this is a question about retention, and it is a useful question to ask, even to ask of people who plan to stay. What factors help them decide to put down roots and to really stay in the longer term? There's a lot to be learned from those answers as well. Original research can be time consuming. It can also be expensive if you're hiring someone else to do it. So depending on the breadth and depth of information that you need, it might be that something like an online tool is just as appropriate and just as useful for you. MyCon is a free online tool on the Cities of Migration website, which is listed here below. And it's a really great tool that can help you find out where your community's strengths and weaknesses lie across the 10 dimensions of inclusion that we listed earlier. So in terms of the process of getting that MyCom assessment done, you want to first register. That won't take long. And then you want to complete 5 different modules. And what these modules are they consist of about 10 to 20 questions per module. And these questions are things like, if you are new to your community as an immigrant, is it easy to get a loan to start your own business? Or if you're a young girl who has English as a second language and you're coming to grade 4 in your community, is there someone who can teach you English as a second language? So they're very interesting questions. They're very easy questions to understand. They're also fairly easy questions for us to answer. And so as you go through each module, at the end of the module, you have opportunity to save. So you can leave at the end of a module and then return and complete the next module as you have time. So it's great that way. You don't have to sit down. If I remember correctly, when I did it, it took me about an hour and a quarter, but that was across all 5 modules. So at the end of it all, you get a score that reflects what your community, how your community did on the various different 10 dimensions of inclusion as it reflects your answers. So it might be that you don't know if English as a second language is available for a young person in school. Or it might be that you're not clear on the different services available for adults in starting their own business. But the tool is going to give you the score as you understand your community. And so you're going to get your answers and the score for your town as it relates to your answers. You're also going to get the score as it relates to the average of everyone who's done it for your community ever on the website. And then your community's score is going to be shared with you in comparison with other cities and the global average. So that's really useful as well. You might be surprised to learn that your community really fares really well compared to the average of all international cities. Or you might learn, we're really doing well in X area, maybe in the social category, we're really doing well, but we're not doing so well as it relates to helping people foster their own business or be entrepreneurs, or, we don't have as many services for families as we would like. So it's a really useful tool. It takes a little bit of time, but the more people do it in your community, the more accurate all of the answers and the average score for your community is. So I really encourage you to look into that tool. So as I mentioned, it's easy, it's fast. Even the questions themselves, I found very, very educational. It really helps us look at our communities from the perspective of someone who is new to our communities. It's very useful to have the comparison of your community score to the average of other communities. And as it gives you your community's results, it gives you links to other resources. So it'll give you the score, for example, on spatial inclusion. And then as it gets down to what other things you might do to build your spatial inclusion for newcomers, it'll connect to resources and say, okay, in the area of X, you want to learn a little bit more, and this is a great article that'll tell you more about how you can be more inclusive in your public park system for newcomers. Those are the resources that we want to share with you in terms of welcoming assessments and how you might learn how welcoming your community is. These are the resources as well that we want to end with. They're the resources that helped us build this, this presentation. The first one here is the Way Forward, or the Immigration Action Plan of the Province of Newfoundland and Labrador. The second is the academic report that we referenced that talks about the characteristics of a welcoming community, those 17. The third is that toolbox. It was created some time ago, 2017, but it has a lot of great ideas for people starting welcoming initiatives. Then there's the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association toolkit. And finally, another toolkit there offered by the Alberta Association. So we hope that you've found this information really useful. We want to thank our partners again, Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as the province's Advanced Education, Skills and Labor Department. And if you'd like to reach us, we encourage you to follow us through any of these various social media sources, or you can call us, go to our website. We really welcome your input and would love to hear what welcoming initiatives are happening in your community, what has worked for you, what are some best practices, what are some questions, or what are some resources that you'd like us to really investigate and build as we create this toolkit. So thank you very much for your time, and we hope to hear from you.